up, everybody? Welcome into the Denver Sports Podcast. Is there no air horn for you today? I don't know. There it is. All right.
I didn't know this was an air horn podcast.
I wasn't sure if it was, but it feels right, man. It's Friday.
Friday at 4. All podcasts are.
Is it good podcasting / radio if I talk about how great the weather report is for the next week?
Please do.
I'm just trying to say right now, it's like I'm such an optimistic time where it's like warm out every single day for the next 10 days. Arguably for the entire rest of the spring / summer. We're over the hump. We're going to have some good times. I got my guy, Ryan Koenigsberg, seated all the way over there on the other end of the couch.
Bringing Friday vibes only.
It is Friday vibes, man. I'm telling you, all day I'm riding with them. And then, of course, the guy who's permanently living with Friday vibes. It's Zac Bye, one half of Stokely and Zach, and in his 4th season doing the Mile High Hoops podcast. A man who needs no introduction at Zac Bye.
What's up, man? I'm super pumped to be here. Fan of you guys, friends of your friends of mine, so I'm excited to sit down here.
Excited to have you, man. And I think we have some good topics here. We're going to obviously get into some Nugget stuff. We're going to get into some Mount Rushmore stuff.
Really quick, Adam and I have been wanting to host a show together for
2.5 years.
Yeah, we've been talking about it. This is our first show,
yeah,
and we wanted you as our first guest. So
this is going to be a trivia question in 20 years.
Also, I'm the one sitting closest to the camera, like of anyone here, and I still look small next to you guys.
We do have, people don't know Zach is tall and he's a hooper.
I am a hooper. Well, not so much within the last year, going through stuff that all hoopers into their 30s go through, but man, yeah, about every day for 15 years at least. It was my life.
How long do you think, because I know guys, I play basketball with a guy who's I think 66 years old.
Yep.
I play in a league with him. He's just a corner 3-point shooter. He plays the top of the zone, and if you dribble around him, he's beat. He's like a decoy where people don't always figure that out. I want to do that. He's an inspiration to me. I want to play basketball till I'm 70 years old.
Basketball does something for me, fires endorphins that nothing in this life will ever provide for me. And I have awesome things in my life, wife, kids, golf, friends. Basketball was always different.
I think the three of us could take any group of 3 media and 3-on-3. No, it's mostly you two, but I can space the floor a little bit.
I don't even know who the contenders would be. Come on. Light
baby.
work, baby.
Light
Come
work.
on, light work. I don't know if there's another sport. Like, I don't even play football anymore. It's like rare. Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
It used to be Thanksgiving. I don't even play that anymore. I
golf.
don't know the last time. Yeah, golf.
When I was growing up, we would play football in the street or in fields. I have to tell you, I've been driving around as an adult for 15 years. I don't slow down for kids playing football in the street anymore. I don't see people playing football in the park. Like that used to be a thing. I just don't see that taking place anymore.
Anecdotally, I've noticed this too. We were just talking earlier about like the different basketball leagues that I've been playing with my whole life. And yeah, it's like we've all gotten older and it's the same teams. But I don't see the next wave of like the young kids in the leagues anymore. So
damn, millennials ruining everything.
They really do.
Doing this.
Just playing their video games and their music. and
damn
TV.
kids.
The songs sound the same.
We're going to get in. I want to talk about the Denver Sports Mount Rushmore and kind of get your guys' perspective because I don't know if you guys seen this, but Jokic, he's going to win his second MVP. We got the tracker. This was one of those things where I honestly thought it was going to be closer. I believe 51 votes are in, and Jokic has 35 or 36 of the first place votes. It's over.
It's over.
I'm sorry, it's over. Unless there's like somehow they've only counted the Jokic ballot and like it's something else. But Jokic is going to be a 2-time MVP. So I kind of want to get into the first question, kind of fun topic of conversation is the Denver's Mount Rushmore of sports, like the all-time greatest, 4 greatest athletes. I think there is one. No, I think there's I'll say 2 locks. There's 2 locks on this. The first lock is the easiest one. It's John Elway.
Yep.
Any objections here?
Zero. Nope. And any list that doesn't start with John Elway is the wrong list.
Absolutely.
Can he ever be unseated as the like Denver sports icon? Because to me, if you said like Denver sports, John Elway.
Well, okay, so think of it this way: John Elway, 2 championships as a player, 1 championship as an executive.
Man, this executive part really matter that much?
He gets it. He has to get credit for bringing Peyton Manning here.
But what about him as a player? He made it to 3 Super Bowls before he ever won his first, right?
Right,
for sure.
Yeah.
Like, what other quarterback has played in 5 Super Bowls?
But what I was going to say is Joe Sakic, 2 Stanley Cups as a player, has a chance to add 1 as an executive. Now, he's not going to unseat him, and I don't think really anything you can do as an executive would ever be able to vault you over John Elway, but I think it would put him in a solid second in terms of impact on Denver sports. Both guys brought 3 championships here.
Well, there is something to John Elway stretches across 3 generations when I say generations, like my grandpa followed John Elway, my dad followed John Elway, and I as a kid followed John Elway, and then you could even stretch it into another one as you're mentioning here as an executive. So the entire city grew up with him. Like Denver before John Elway arrived was almost a different historical place, you know. And so that's why, and Sakic has a little bit of that, in that he came over, obviously, the turn of the century, and Denver has evolved a lot, and he's still here. But Elway, to me, just spans like 40 years of Denver sports history.
And as all three of us know, if you walk into any diner, bar, anything in Denver, those people are all Broncos fans.
Yeah.
You can't say the same thing about the Avalanche.
Sure.
You know, it's just, you know, the Avalanche have an incredible fan base, but it is a fan base.
Yeah.
Broncos fans is just the city.
Yeah.
I think up until about 7 weeks ago, John Elway was still the face of the Denver Broncos. And I think that, seriously, and we had these conversations openly, and it's obviously debatable, but forget if you were to leave Colorado and talk to someone in Pennsylvania and said, who's the first thing you think of with you might still go to John despite him playing his last game in the early 99.
Right. I mean, that's definitely true. Peyton Manning was so big that he almost like...
He had his moment, but I think it was
a
he
shorter
was in
moment.
and then out.
But he's so... But Peyton Manning, I think he's just more famous than John Elway.
He
outside
is.
of Denver.
He
I'm
is.
just saying,
Oh,
like,
totally.
In the world.
I think inside of
he's
Denver.
cooler.
I think seriously. I mean, we and I know you saw this, like, and a lot of outlets were asking the question during the time where Peyton and John were both questioned to be in ownership, and with a sample size of thousands and thousands of votes, 9 out of every 10 people were wanting Peyton involved. It was stunning.
Yeah.
It's like, how could this be?
But he's like cooler. He's more charming. He's funnier. Like it's, you know, he's the guy that you want in the front of it.
Yes, no doubt. And Peyton, you talk about people who have won MVPs as you talk about Jokic, you're really entering this discussion. You know, Peyton is one of these guys who has won an MVP in Denver, that won a Super Bowl in Denver.
Right.
But as I know you're going to get to, we do not have a 2-time MVP.
Right.
We do. He just hasn't gotten the second trophy yet.
Yeah.
But isn't it hard to believe that, like, John won one MVP in 1987, Joe Sakic, Larry Walker, Peyton, TD. You can go through it, and there for Denver to be have the heritage from a sports perspective as it does with parades and cups and trophies, for there to be never a 2-time winner is kind of interesting.
And I think the craziest part is if you would have said the first one's going to come in the NBA.
Right.
Like the biggest, that would have been the worst odds you would have possibly
well
gotten.
said.
Even if you would have put this out, honestly, in 2018, you know, Jokic is still playing, and if you would have been like, yeah, then a Nugget will be the first 2-time MVP, they'd be like, no way, man. Who's it going to be? We've never seen it. Like, no, he's actually on the team over here. But I want to stick with Elway for a bit, because he's a great player, and he has a storybook career. Like, he really does, in the culminating with two not just one, but back-to-back titles.
Getting over the hump. Yeah.
Getting over the hump like that. And again, how he grew up, and he was the only show in town. You know, it was him, Broncos, Nuggets, but Broncos obviously so big. And I wonder, like, should we handicap it because of that? Like, that he had this leg up of he came around at a time when
there was
nothing else and this or that. I don't know. But I do feel like it's almost unfair. You would almost say, like, no one will ever pass Elway. I hate whenever we have a no one will ever pass this person in sports, because to me, sports are always about, like, pushing things forward.
I don't think so. I think that he can be passed.
Wow.
But it all comes down to championships.
Yeah, that's true.
It's the only possible way you can pass him. Like, I don't.
If you tie him in championships, it's
not enough.
Yeah, to still Elway.
But if you beat him in championships, if someone delivers 3 championships to the city, I think they have a chance. Now you're right about the whole thing of, like, how Elway spans generations. And I had never really thought of it that way, but it's true. Like the way that John Elway, like, impacts, like, my mom could never be matched by anyone else. You know, like, even if Jokic delivers 3 championships to Denver, he won't even come in the same stratosphere as John Elway to my mom. But I think that's the only way, and I do think it's actually possible if someone were to do it. If Russell Wilson were to bring 3 championships to the Broncos, I think that he would legitimately have a case.
Wow.
I think it's. I think 3 championships.
Maybe it feels so weird to be like.
It's not crazy. It's not crazy, and you know, I think that with John, and this is an important part of it. Like, quarterback is the most talked about position in all of sports.
Yep.
If you were to ask Colin Cowherd, per se, who the 5 greatest quarterbacks of all time is, John still gets love on lists like that. So it's the championships. It's an MVP box that's been checked, but it's also, like, sustained greatness that he's in these GOAT conversations from coast to coast. And I don't know. I think there's one guy who could have a shot at passing John, and a lot would have to go right in the next 5 to 6 years. But Nathan McKinnon, the spot that he's carving for himself with the possibility of team success,
right,
is a really good name to, I guess, keep an eye on, career to keep an eye on.
I want to let's put that on hold for 1 second because I want to get to sort of the contenders here as soon as we establish the list. Elway and Sakic, and we spent a little bit of time on Sakic, but I mean, also a great winner. I mean, this is a big part of it. Does charisma in this play into it at all? Like, I always wonder about Patrick Waugh, Peter Forsberg are the other guys that you could, for me, put on that list.
Right.
And Sakic is the first one I will put on the list. Waugh might have been the better player at his position. He might be the greatest goalie of all time, but yet Sakic is the more of the shoe-in. So does charisma play into this?
Well, I don't think Joe Sakic has that much charisma.
Oh, I do.
I mean,
it's like Kevin Costner, man. He's like,
hockey
it's not
players,
charisma as in like he's cool. He's or like funny or this or that, like Peyton Manning. He's just charisma as in he just seems like I have so much confidence in him.
Yeah, no, that's true. But to me, I think it's the captain's patch that kind of allows him to elevate over those guys. You ask anyone, they'll say Forsberg, was the more talented player. Yeah. Like you said, Patrick Waugh is arguably the greatest goalie of all time. No one says Joe Sakic's arguably the greatest center of all time.
Right.
But he was the captain of the team. He had the clutch gene.
Yeah.
And kind of like you mentioned, he just had this thing about him. Was like, oh, that's our guy. He's the leader. Like as a kid, like people always say, oh, like I was a Forsberg guy, especially like people that are a little bit older than me. And I'm like, I was a Sakic guy, but I think it's just because like I was a kid and I'm like, oh, he's the captain. He's the guy.
And Sakic won an MVP as well, right?
I think so.
I'm pretty sure it was Forsberg and Sakic.
Each got one.
I'm pretty sure each got one.
I know Forsberg did.
And none of them more than once, but yeah, I mean,
what year was it? Yeah, here, look it up.
I think it was 2000. I want to say because they went back to back, right? 2002, or no, it was one in between. I think there was championship.
They went 96 and 2001 were the championships.
Okay,
but they were, they won the division every single year, and like the reason why I bring up that three championships number is because I think when a team wins 3 championships with one guy, you can start to use the word dynasty, which is a word we've never been able to use in Denver.
Yeah,
we've never been able to call a team a dynasty here.
2001.
His MVP.
Sakic won
2001.
Yep. So like we've never been able to do that before. That Avs team was the closest. They could have gotten 3, 4, 5. They got 2, and obviously the Broncos won back to back. But then Elway retires and it just dissipates. So if one of these guys was able to deliver 3 championships in 6 years or 3 championships in 5 years, that's a dynasty, and they were the face of it.
See, I think there's only one team that can qualify for that right now, like in terms of a reasonable forecast, and it's the Avs. I don't think there's really anyone else in the discussion because who the Broncos' neighbors are in the AFC West, which is going to be the most competitive division we've seen in years.
If they do it, would be historic.
Maybe,
sure.
But it's also the context of the AFC, like all the other AFC quarterbacks, like the bracket on that side of the league is just going to be treacherous. So if the Broncos get one with Russ, I think that we can start there. The Rockies obviously aren't a part of this conversation, and the Nuggets, I just think in the NBA specifically, I just can't. I'd have to tie my brain into a pretzel to go there.
So think dynasty for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. I keep thinking like they have the best player in the league. So like,
but it's fleeting. I will say that. Like, how much longer do you think Jokic will be an MVP? Like. Contender. I mean, it could be 2, 3,
5,
4 years. He's 27 at 32. Is he going to be like? I don't know. He'll be great. He'll still be a great player, but will he be like winning MVPs?
If anyone's game can age well, he plays below the rim. And I had this conversation with myself on the Mile High Hoops podcast last season. It's like, if you were going to draft a player for the next 10 years, who would you rather have, Nikola Jokic or Giannis Antetokounmpo? And there's reasonable minds can disagree, but I think the side of Jokic that, again, is reasonable. He does not rely on his athleticism. He is totally a neck-up player, and I just think that is it crazy that Jokic could be competing for an MVP when he's 31 years old? I don't think it is.
31, no. 32, it's just if you go historical precedent, it's just very, very, very rare for somebody. It's almost always the MVP is like the next best player. Like they'll take it. Derrick Rose took it from LeBron. He wasn't the best player, but taking it kind of the next generation. So, all right, but I want to get back to this. Elway and Sakic are penciled in, or they're locked in. I think Patrick Waugh is. There's very few players that you could look at and say, were they the best at their position? And they won. So he won, and you could easily make a case that he's the greatest goaltender of all time. So to me, I look at that and I go, do we have the greatest quarterback of all time? Probably not.
No.
As great as John Elway was. Do we have the greatest center, point guard, whatever? No. Greatest goalie, I think Patrick Waugh is on the Mount Rushmore.
You just sold me. I might have.
Yeah, you winced at first.
I just was thinking, but you sold me. That's the only one that we can really claim GOAT status.
Yeah.
Would be Patrick Waugh, greatest goalie of all time.
And it's a
And it's not
position
an
too.
inconsequential position.
No,
Like
yeah,
it's not like
yes.
the best right fielder or something of this. No, it's like, hey,
Right.
he was the goalie.
And that early run for the Avs never happens without Patrick Waugh.
For sure.
Bar none, straight up.
You want to know what's a shame for me as someone who watches the Rockies and roots for the Rockies is that if we were having this conversation 5 years from now, Nolan Arenado should have been squarely in this conversation
third baseman.
as the first ever infielder in the National League to start his career 6-for-6 winning Gold Gloves. This is also a guy who's Silver Slugger, led the league in RBI, all this stuff. And it's just like, man, he was going to be literally talking about greatest player of his position. That's why he comes to my mind. And it's obviously a shame
It
that
sucks,
that it's
but I
not.
also feel like there's no argument for Arenado to be on the Denver Sports Mount Rushmore.
Nope, there's not. He doesn't have an MVP. He doesn't have a championship. So when you put him side by side against someone like Waugh, it just falls drastically short.
One playoff win?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
against
It's not
the
even,
Cubs.
against the Cubs success.
And that's the
Yeah.
other thing. Nolan's hitting 200 in his playoff career.
Right,
he
right,
hasn't
yeah.
been.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's an unfortunate point.
Okay, so we've got three.
So we got three. There's a fourth one that to me is the most. I don't think if you got 10 diehard Denver sports fans, you would get 10 different answers or close to it.
Yeah, I lean TD.
Yeah.
Now longevity, plays a role
Super
here.
short.
But dominant. You could say that he's the best playoff running back of all time. You could make that argument. Obviously, Super Bowl, two-time Super Bowl champion, MVP, and Super Bowl MVP.
Right.
He's got all of that stuff. I would give it to him if we're not putting Jokic there because
Right.
I think that it's only a matter of time before that's his.
So I'm going to bring another name up, and I wouldn't have brought him up unless you brought up TD. But I don't think anyone burned as bright over a 4-year period than Peyton Manning, who won a league MVP, which I think is harder to do than being a Super Bowl one-off game MVP.
Yeah.
Went to 2 Super Bowls, won one. It's the most explosive offense of all time. I don't know if you guys realize this, but in Manning's 3 years, not counting the last year,
Not counting the Super Bowl year.
no, not counting the Super Bowl year, but 3 of his highest touchdown totals of his career, 3 of the 4 are in Denver.
They were unbelievable. I mean, they were unbelievable years. Like I never had more confidence, I don't think, in the Denver Broncos. Even if you go back to like 97, 90, than I did with those first two.
It's like shocking when they lost.
It was shocking when
it
they
was so-
punted.
That's what I was going
Right.
to say. It was shocking when they punted. It was such a machine. And he had the Jokic factor too where, and this, I hate to brag, it wasn't always this way in the playoffs, but in the regular season, he had this thing where he would just look around. He just kind of felt like, you guys are playing checkers, man. Like he don't. All these teams would just be falling, jumping at shadows every single pass, every single possession.
To me, he's the single closest sports comp you can make to Jokic.
I mean,
The way that he just looks at it and is like, "Oh no, this is easy.
Wasn't
You go
terribly
there, you
gifted.
go there.
Yeah.
There it is. Yeah,
From a
exactly.
physical standpoint, he wasn't, beating anyone in a race. He wasn't throwing the football the farthest. Like, that's just not how he operated.
It was the greatest thing. I mean, everybody made a big deal of the Omaha, right? But it was always the biggest deal when he'd start pointing at something and he'd be
you
like,
remember
I don't know
being-
what's going to happen. Then
Yeah.
it would be right there and he'd be like, yeah, he's like literally telling you what's going to happen.
Do you remember being on the other side of that?
Of course.
When the Broncos are playing the Colts in the playoffs, and you just see Peyton walk up to the line and start pointing, and you're just like, we're so fucked.
Yeah.
We are so screwed.
So by this logic, then, that you were talking about the executive, I mean, Peyton Manning might involve himself in this Broncos conversation in years to come. Like, would that affect his his entry onto Mount Rushmore if he became an owner or, in some car, a decision maker?
Yes. I'll say this though: if owners are included, then Pat Bowlen probably deserves a spot on
See,
this.
that's why I think this is a slippery slope. Like,
Yeah.
I think there's got to be
Coaches
some
too,
sort of line of
Shanahan or
demarcation.
something,
Yeah,
yeah.
like I think there's got to be some sort of outline and parameter for the
I agree,
conversation.
too. That's why I throw out SAC executive part.
My thing
of
is
this.
though, it extends the legacy. So
Yeah.
you get an opportunity here where Peyton Manning, our biggest thing with him would be longevity.
Yeah.
But if he comes back into the fold and has a hand in another championship, just like mentally, you're like, oh, Peyton Manning, he was a part of the Broncos for a long
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Right. I will say one of the funny things I do, I respect Larry Bird more because of how good of a coach and executive he was. Nobody does the trifecta. Nobody does. Most players are terrible GMs.
It's so
or
true.
horrible coaches, or like
Just look at
the good
LeBron.
coaches are like bit players or this. Yeah, but somehow he was a great coach. Went to
the NBA Finals.
Went to the finals. He was a great executive and made like really smart. The same with Jerry West. I look at that and I go, across eras, this
That's a
guy
great
somehow
point.
did things, and it makes me more impressed with them as opposed to like Isaiah Thomas, who's a great obviously player and then was a horrible coach, horrible GM, and like this. You think
MJ.
like MJ, you're
Yeah.
like, what did you really know if you are Adam Morse and everybody tried to talk you out of him, you still picked him. Like, what are you doing? So Manning, if he, to me, as much as you're right, it's a slippery slope. Part of me is like, if he came in and just built another dynasty a la Sakic, I'd almost be like, that guy gets football on this level we mortals can't possibly comprehend.
It's fair.
Yeah. I think if the farther you extend the conversation, Nikola Jokic's prominence in the conversation, I was going to say I think it grows.
Really?
Yeah, because, well, first of all, the Nuggets are going to have to achieve more team success than they have.
Okay.
And playing in the Western Conference Finals, that's nice, but in this wing of the conversation, there's going to have to be more. But when you start mixing in a second MVP, you're bringing into the fold the criteria that literally no one else in the history of
Right.
Denver sports has. So while he may not have the team success yet, and I believe they're going to play in the finals. I don't know if they're ever going to win a championship, but I feel in my gut that they're going to play in the NBA Finals in the next 3 to 4 years. Man, and if that happens, I think the individual success and the potential to be a top 20 player of all time, I think there's a pathway for his career to end up that way. So I'd be curious if we were to fast forward time what it looks like in a few years.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I also think that Jokic is having a legitimate cultural impact on Denver in terms of growing the Nuggets, especially as more and more young people come here. You'll see this here at the bar over the next month or so. When the Nuggets are in the playoffs here, it's a super young crowd.
Right,
It's a lot of people my age and younger that come and watch the Nuggets, and that to me is like people are coming to Denver. Obviously, the NBA is more popular in young people now than ever before, and it's growing with young people faster than any other sport. And I just think that Jokic being here at this time when Denver is growing at this rapid rate is changing the way that the Nuggets are perceived in Denver.
Yeah.
I hope that where I wish, and I don't want to get too negative, but that should be growing with the older demo too, and it's not. And I think that we know why. Who's more apt to stream a game, a young person or an older person? And I think that, I just am constantly hurting my neck from shaking my head at the last 2 years.
The one thing
So
I will say
frustrating.
though, and push, because I'm with you, like I'm obviously shaking my head the fact that this barrier of entry is so ridiculous. But before the barrier of entry, but when they were on TV, Denver was a bottom 5 television
Yep.
market. So it's like,
Nope.
But that's pre Jokic greatest player on earth.
Yeah, before he wasn't won MVPs. We definitely missed the 2 MVP years, and you're right that momentum with Jokic for whatever reason was slower to catch on. Like even he had a great 2018, and people were still
He finished fourth
slow.
at MVP, right? Or fourth or fifth?
Fourth, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, he should have been third, but he was fourth or what have you.
And that was, I think, the last season that we were
they
able
got to see him.
Golly.
So,
It's crazy, dude.
So I think what we settled on here is that Elway, we all agree, Elway and Sakic. I think we all agree on Wah. Mm-hmm. And then there's a 4th spot open, and Terrell Davis. Could you go Peyton Manning? Jokic is knocking on that door, if not there already. And then you've got guys like McKinnon, Forsberg. Von Miller would be the other one that I would throw on there that you could easily make a case for it. Those are the guys. I think once you get to like Walker and Helton, I think those guys are another tier below.
What's really interesting is we don't mention Champ Bailey. That's a
Champ
first
Bailey.
ballot Hall of Famer,
Yeah.
but he didn't have the success. But we do mention TD. TD, not even close to a first ballot Hall of Famer.
No.
Yeah.
And Vaughn will eventually, in my opinion, be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
He will.
So that, I think, has to play a role too. As much as I don't like the whole Hall of Fame conversation, I think that has to play a role. He has the Super Bowl MVP, he has the Super Bowl, and he'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
He was on the all-decade team as well.
Yeah.
He's one of 10 defensive players to ever win that Super Bowl MVP that you just
Right.
referenced. I mean, it's rarefied air. He's the Broncos' all-time sack leader, one of the blue blood organizations in the NFL. So I think there's an argument for Vaughn, but it gets more complicated, once you start getting down those listed names. Larry Walker, I mean, he won an MVP. He is a Hall of Famer as well.
The only.
Yeah, the only. But again, once you really start to parse through it, can you really put Larry Walker, over a Von Miller or over a Peyton Manning or over a Terrell Davis?
I'll put it this way. to me, it's very simple. Now, this isn't his only path, but one ring, Jokic is there instantly. Like, there's just
I agree.
nothing.
I agree.
An
It's his
NBA
spot.
title is just like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's been 55 years.
Right.
They've never made the finals. Like, you win the championship. Like, to me, it's harder for the Nuggets to win a championship, I think, than just about any team, maybe outside of the Rockies.
Yeah.
The Rockies,
Agreed.
A World Series
Agreed.
would be equally, if not harder. So,
Which is why it hurts so much that they almost lucked into one.
it's so
and like
true.
we would have just been able to have that forever. And
really
now we
was
might never
magical.
get one, in my opinion.
Let's move on here, though, because I want to talk about this Nugget season with you, Zach. And my first question, because I know that you've enjoyed the Jokic era. I know you've enjoyed the Jamal Murray, all this era. Did you enjoy this season?
You know what, man? I'm glad that you asked that question. When you take a step back, the Nuggets actually accomplished a lot this season.
So I so agree with you.
Dude, so here was the moment for me. It was like 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, when they said, yeah, the Nuggets won the most road games in franchise history. And I was like, wait, they did?
You're right, yeah.
Why hasn't it felt this good? And it's like, I don't know, man. It's like trying to celebrate something when something bad happened, you know, like
Right.
the day or week before
Yeah.
that was important to you or your family or something. Like this entire year has felt like, well, I've been calling it the season before the season. It's ever since Game 10. I couldn't reasonably forecast the Nuggets accomplishing the goals that they set out to after the Aaron Gordon trade, and I never realistically thought they could get there. So
Right.
despite an MVP season, despite winning 48 freaking games, going over their total that the Vegas set out for them, it just never felt that way because I've been trying to move away from this cloud that keeps following our picnic, and it actually sucks, if I'm being frank, because I don't think we're able to enjoy Yoke to
Right.
the degree that he deserved in such a rare season because it's always like this but thing.
Right.
I'm going to disagree. And it's because of Jokic. I tuned in every night with no other expectation of Nikola Jokic might do something really dope tonight. And then he just did
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
so many times
Yeah.
that like I got a lot of enjoyment out of that. And I've said Nikola Jokic has become my single favorite Denver athlete to watch ever.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's he's so reliable. Like
He is.
if you buy a ticket and you go to the game,
You got your money's
and
worth.
you go to watch Jokic, he never disappoints.
Yeah.
Dude, which is so crazy because if you go back to just the 17-18 season, that was the thing that was missing from
Right.
Jokic. It was like, we
Yeah,
know
he-
he can do a triple-double against the Wizards on a Tuesday, but can you do it on Thursday and then Saturday? Not necessarily a triple-double, just getting your money's worth an NBA superstar.
I actually think I don't know who's more consistent than him.
No.
I honestly mean that. Like, I think Giannis has very few bad games, but I think he has more than Jokic does. Like, Jokic just doesn't have bad games.
Well, we were just talking about the Peyton Manning era, how it was
Yeah,
like shocking
yeah.
when they didn't win. It's like when
Right.
Jokic has a bad game, when he scores like 18 points, 8 rebounds,
Yeah.
whatever, it's just like,
Yeah, it's still
that
good
was
numbers.
weird.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, that was really weird. Jokic didn't look like the best player on the planet.
and he still shot 70%. You're
Yeah.
like, why didn't he just shoot
Yeah.
5 more times?
Right,
or something?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And he shot 70%, and you think about the ones that he missed. You're like, he missed that like little jump hook. He never misses that, you know? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost you expect him to shoot 100% from the field every night and have a triple double.
Right.
It's funny the way you phrased it, though, RK, because you said like you would never thought about not tuning in. That's the thing is like for me, I guess I took that for granted. Even you saying that made me realize I took it for granted. I would never miss a Jokic game. I know that's crazy. I'm obsessive, right? I'm a Nuggets guy. I'm covering him. When the Nuggets, it didn't happen this year, but if the Nuggets are on and I just have a prior engagement or something, I have anxiety. Like I'm missing greatness right now. Like I am, whatever I'm doing, my attention is not on this great thing. So for me, it was assumed I would just watch these games, even if I knew, as you're pointing out, that the ultimate goal was probably out of reach. And I think this is wherein lies the frustration of this season, where our wires get crossed. I'd argue with people in the media 4 or 5 years ago when they would talk about the Nuggets either being irrelevant or not competitive or this or that. I'm like, yeah, they're not competitive, but you have to understand it's a slow build. Like they got young guys. The season is exciting even if a championship isn't the goal. This year, you could say that same thing, but it's not the same thing.
It's not, and that's why I almost felt a little bit guilty sometimes because it felt like almost empty calories. Like
Yeah.
these games are nice. This incredible run is so worthy of our appreciation, but ultimately the dinner that I was hoping was going to be there, I know it's not.
Right.
Yeah.
I know it's not coming. So a lot of it was like temporary fulfillment that got us to the next game because this big goal isn't in
Yeah.
focus anymore.
What did you learn about the Nuggets this season?
Before you answer that, want to give a quick shout out to DraftKings Sportsbook. Gotta get that in there. DraftKings Sportsbook. Bet $5 this week, and you don't even have to win. You just have to play. Like, all you have to do is just play along. Bet $5 on any of the play-in games, and you will get $150 in free bets just for playing along. Get that account started. Then put all $150 in free bets on the Nuggets to win the series.
Just bet on the Bucks to beat the Bulls. That's the safest bet there is.
You know what that number is? You know what that number is? Guess.
I would guess, man, for just an outright series win or for the
outright series win.
Minus 900?
Minus 1,600.
1,600? Yeah, I mean.
You want to win $100?
I was going to say.
Take out $1,600.
It's also the easiest bet. Like, I can't wrap my head around the things that would have to happen for the Bulls to win.
But this is
one.
where people take out like $250,000 to win 58 grand. And next thing you know, Buster Douglas is knocking out Tyson.
I was going to say, I hope someone does that just to mess with the universe.
Right. If Drew Holiday falls into Giannis's leg, breaks his back on Giannis's knee, like, okay, he took out 2. That's the
But
only
even then, we saw Giannis's knee go the other way last year, and he was like clapping
He's
stuff
fine.
off the top of the glass the next week.
Anyways, DraftKings Sportsbook, use the code DNVR when you sign up. Get a sign-up bonus up to $1,000. Of course, you must be 21 or older. Colorado only. Bonus comprised of first deposit bonus and a first bet match, each $500. Deposit bonus cards to 25x playthrough. Restrictions to apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. Also, shout out to Breck Brew. Adam, what's your prediction on how many Breck Brews will be consumed tomorrow at the bar?
Man, if I was setting a line on this, there's going to be 400 people here for roughly 3.5-4 hours. I'm going to go ahead and say 2,000 Breck Brews are going to be consumed.
2,000 Breck Brews going down here tomorrow. We're also even going to have.
I can't wait, man. Tomorrow's going to be
Dude,
unbelievable.
I love Friday nights, but I'm like, I just got to get past Friday so I can
know.
get to Saturday.
I know. Saturday's going to be unbelievable. I'm going to get here at like noon tomorrow.
So we're going to have beer tubs in the bar because we know there's going to be so many people. So multiple beer tubs throughout the bar, making sure that you guys can get your Breck Brews nice and fast. And if you're not coming to the bar tomorrow or you're just looking for some beers tonight, go check out the beer locator on Breck Brews website, breckenridgebrewery.com, and you can find out wherever the closest Breck Brews are to you. So I've got a little good company here right now, as do the guys. It's a good way to kick off the weekend.
It is a good way. This is like, it tastes like spring. Cheers. So back to the question here. What did you learn about the Nuggets this season? Was there something to be learned from it?
The one thing I'll say about the Nuggets, I don't know if I learned this, but maybe it was reinforced of the grit of the roster that Tim Connolly has put together. I think that if you asked Aaron Gordon to play over his head for 3 weeks, or you asked Austin Rivers to play up 2 spots in the lineup for 3 weeks, like, we all can like overextend ourselves. I do a 3-hour radio show every day. If you ask me to do 4 hours for the next like 3 weeks, it's okay. An entire season asking every single person on the roster to play a role that is not naturally theirs.
Right.
I was just. Jokic is incredible. Jokic is amazing, but you don't get to 48 wins without the roster, without Bones Highland, which maybe my biggest takeaway of the season is Tim Connolly. Goddamn, he did it again. 26 pick out of VCU.
Every time,
like,
every
dude,
time.
When he was here, I told him that, and he said, lucky.
I mean, of course, that's who he is. But I'll say that, like, these guys are not in the roles that they should be, and on a night-to-night basis, it could be frustrating to watch. Yeah. But I had to like recenter myself, like, that's not who that guy is. They're asking him to do something that's not naturally within his skill set or wherewithal. So I think the others, the quote-unquote others, deserve like a tip of the cap.
Yeah. What about you, RK? What did you learn about the Nuggets this year?
I learned that.
I like that you really were just around for the ride. You're like, I wouldn't pay it. Just having fun.
That's truly how I really was just like, I hope Jokic does something special tonight. And then,
he did every single time.
Multiple times a week he did. I don't know. I learned that when you take 2 of a team's 3 best players away, it makes depth a massive issue.
Right.
Because the guys who are supposed to be your good depth guys have to be your good starters, and it created a massive problem for them. They actually were able to quell it for a little bit in the middle of the year there, and then scarily it really reared its ugly head, towards the end of the season there. And that is my single biggest fear is, like, I constantly ask myself, can Jokic play just 48
I
minutes
know,
a night?
I know.
Is it possible?
Yeah.
Are basketball coaches overthinking this, and you can just play Jokic the whole game in a playoff run and
Yeah.
just try to make it work?
They
Like,
get TV timeouts.
yeah, exactly.
Come on, bro.
You actually do. On the ABC game, you're going to get a lot of timeouts. I think he's going to play like 42 minutes or something.
I think you might too.
I am
but that-
taking the overs on all of his on the
Stats?
rebounds for sure.
Everything.
Really?
I'm taking the over on. They could set it at 13 and a half.
Yeah,
14
you'll
and a
still
half.
do it.
Is it
14
really?
and a half.
Well, damn. Well, no, I'm still going to take
I'm
it.
taking it too. I'm taking it
Hey,
too.
now I know Draymond didn't play against them, but he averaged 16 rebounds against the
Yeah.
Warriors in the 4 games this year.
Draymond's tough.
His major minutes, I think he's going to pull down 17, 18 boards.
I mean, there's a lot of basketball stuff I learned. Denver has to be better defensively on the perimeter. That's one thing you learn. But if I like to zoom out from that and think big picture, there's 2 things. One, I mean, we learned even more that Jokic is that guy. He got better. He won an MVP last year, and he made it definitive this year. He had a
incredible.
runaway MVP last year, and he's going to have a runaway MVP this year.
Yeah.
Like, just think about that. Nobody wanted to vote over him second time. Nobody came into the season saying, hey, we want to give it.
Especially not the sports
They
geeks.
wanted
Thank you
not
very
to.
much.
He wasn't in the top 5.
Yeah, and yet he's going to win it by 2 or 3 to 1 margin over
Yep.
the next closest guys. And by the way, this was an all-time competitive MVP race, and he still did it. So that's one of them. But that's the number 2 thing I learned. The number 1 thing, though, just how fleeting it is in basketball. Like, we go rewind 2-3 years ago, and you talk about we just made the Western Conference Finals in the bubble. You would think about like, oh man, they're gonna be back. They're gonna be doing this.
This
2
is the
years.
beginning.
2 years. 2 years, all of a sudden, feel almost punted. Nobody's fault.
I know.
But they almost feel punted. And it just makes you remind, like, if we sit here and say Yoke's 27, he's going to sign a massive contract, he's going to be here for 5 more years. Okay, that's 5 more chances. Odds are, I hate to be the guy here, odds are one of those 5 years is going to be taken from the team in some capacity.
Yeah.
And
he's been healthy.
That's what I mean, is somebody gets hurt, or
Yeah.
you catch a super team in a year where they can't lose just
Yeah.
for some dumb reason or whatever happens. Like, so it's just fleeting. Like, we sit here, and as much as we can say that you're set up for success, you just never know what's around the corner. And that's the thing that I hope the team takes to heart in a way. Maybe they haven't even in just this last season.
You want to know what helps me sleep at night?
What's that?
How old was MJ when he won his first?
27,
How old was LeBron when he won his first?
28, or
Yeah,
27?
right there.
So the
We're
window
right here,
has
yeah.
only just begun.
Yeah, it's so true.
You know, it's a fickle thing with sports and the assumption of windows. And
Right.
you know who came to my mind, and it's not a congruent example, but I think it's worth mentioning because I remember after the Chiefs won their Super Bowl, we came in the next day, and Stokely and myself, we said, if you gave Mahomes, I said, because you got to remember, he was the pre-snap penalty away the year before in the
Right.
AFC Championship game. So they were right there on their doorstep. Next year they go and win it. And I said, if you gave Mahomes 3, this sounds so stupid right now, but I said, if you presented Mahomes, here's 3 Super Bowls.
Guaranteed, that's what you'll get. Yeah.
Guaranteed if you sign it, but
Yeah.
the hope of nothing more, does he
Yeah.
sign it? And we both said, like, nah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
there's no way. That core is now been broken up. Travis Kelce's now 32,
Right.
and he's got 1.
Yeah.
And I know they've won 1, but it's still
And
like
things just happened. Like, some of it was stuff out of their control.
correct. And you have these assumptions on what's
Yeah.
what the future holds, and that's for all of our lives, by the way, too. It's like you
Right.
just don't know.
Yeah. I think Denver is probably being smacked in the face with that. I think the Nuggets and the Tim Conley era have looked at it let's have a long window,
Yeah.
not necessarily a wide one. And I wonder how they'll approach this offseason if it's like, hey, let's go for the widest possible window in 2023. And let's just what things like
What does that look like?
Bones Highland, Zeke Naji, like, you look at those guys, they could be great players for you for years to come, or they could be one really good
Don't do that to
player,
me.
and
Right. then
you're kind of back to square. And honestly, I don't know what the right answer is. I love Bones. I want him to stay around. You got the Bones shirt on. Like, I
I'm
love
about
Bones.
to have 3 bone shirts in my closet.
And if there was a 4th one coming out, you'd buy the 4th
Yes,
one. Like, that's the
yes.
thing about it. He's so great. I'm not advocating for them to trade. Those tough decisions that I think were easier 2 years ago, you're kind of hit with the consequence of, hey man, sometimes 1 year is all you got, and if you can push it all in for that,
You want to know what, Adam? I just asked the question, like, if you're a team like the Nuggets and you've never won one, don't they profile as a team like the Toronto Raptors did 3 years ago and said, we're going for
Right.
this one thing, and we're going to try, and you're going to deal your all-time leading scorer, and
Right.
you're going to bring in Kawhi as a rental, and they did it. And when you do it and you cross the finish line, you never apologize for how
Right.
you did it. And I wonder if those questions and conversations are legitimately
Every
being
team
had.
thinks that they're the Toronto Raptors in that scenario, though. But most teams that do that are the Minnesota Timberwolves that went all in for Jimmy Butler.
Sure.
And like they barely made a splash.
Yep.
And that's the fear is like it's not always you trade for Kawhi and it works out. Sometimes you trade for Kawhi and you're an 8 seed and you lose in the first round and then he leaves and you go, that sucked.
But what the Raptors didn't have and what a lot of these other teams didn't have is a player like Jokic.
Yeah.
And it's like you identify we
better.
have the greatest player in franchise history.
Yeah.
Do we need almost not like being beholden to him, but like he deserves this. He deserves all the chips being pushed in. And
who's the guy? Who's the guy that you would say, if you get this guy, the window is so wide?
The player's not available at this moment, though. Like, these things happen. Kawhi wasn't
it's like
exactly
Harden
available.
becomes available every few months. Like,
well, it's
he's
not
the
James.
guy.
It's not definitely not James Harden.
So
It's definitely not James
what does that
Harden.
look like?
I don't know. Zion Williamson maybe becomes available shortly.
But I wonder if it's like, it's not a name like that. I wonder if it's like, and I'm not saying this is the answer. I'm just floating out like a concept, like if it's like trading for Kevin Huerter. And it's like Denver needs like I'm a Kevin Huerter guy, but I know because we were at the game together. But it's like the Nuggets need a knockdown shooter.
Yeah.
They need an accent. They don't need a new axe.
They
don't need a machete. They need like maybe a scalpel to go alongside Yoke. And
I trust Tim Conley to find
have-
those guys, though. Like, Tim Conley is really good at finding the Kevin Huerters of the world. I mean, Bones Highland is one of these guys. Like,
but why haven't they found a shooter though in years?
Well,
Michael
first of all,
Porter
they have
Jr.
2 shooters. They're just both hurt. Like, any team you
Yeah.
took away their first and second best shooters, you would be like, why don't they have shooting?
Sure.
Part of me
They
is
tried to get Bryn Forbes, and
all of a sudden Will Barton's a better shooter when the 4th best wing defender is guarding him and he's open a lot more and he's making his open threes. So I trust those parts. The question is, Michael Porter, Jamal Murray, are those your guys? I think so, but maybe not. And you just have to decide quick about, hey, is this, or are we going to wait for Michael Porter another year to kind of come along? And we're going to wait for Jamal another year. Like, those things will be tough. Or Bones Highland, are we going to wait another year? I don't know.
if you could go, and let's say Bones makes a big leap in the offseason in terms of just his overall game. If you could go Bones, Jamal, AG, MPJ, and Jokic all on the floor at the same time, like, how do you possibly defend that?
Well, yeah, but who do they possibly defend is the flip side of this. I mean, it's
And that is
these are
obviously
the tough questions. Like, honestly, when Drew Holiday became available, this was one of the things I was like, I don't know, man. He's just offensively this, offensively that. And now you look at it and you go, Yoke makes everybody on offense 10% better.
Right.
And then defensively, Drew makes everybody 30% better. Like that. In hindsight, Drew Holiday's not nearly as sexy as Jamal Murray or even a Bones Highland, just when you talk about the fun, pure adrenaline. But would he shut down if he was on the Nuggets right now and we were going up against the Warriors? You'd be like, oh, Clay or Steph's going to have a rough series. One of those guys is going to have a tough series because we got Drew.
You're also going to feel pretty good against anyone if, like, every possession ends in a Jokic paint attempt, Jamal Murray 3, Michael Porter Jr. 3, or a AG dunk.
I want to move on, though, because there's another conversation I wanted us to have real quick, and I think about this a lot. The NBA, I wonder if it's becoming more niche or not, or niche. You know, like if people are, it's hard for the casual fan to be captured. I just wonder. Like you see some of the ratings numbers or this across the board. I wonder what the audience looks like. And it made me think about which leagues right now, in your opinion, 5-10 years from now, we're going to consider more fun and which ones are maybe losing their fun value to it. And I have my takes. RK, I'll start with you on this one. Which league do you think is increasing in fun? This is like a subjective thing. I'm not asking you what the numbers are saying.
Well, I'm going to say the NFL right now is actually increasing in fun. And maybe this is like the football guy thing in me, but I think the NFL looked at the NBA, which I know the NBA is going to be talked about here, so I'll go a different direction. I think the NFL looked at the NBA and said, we need more drama. And they're getting it.
God, I hope
they are getting it.
Look at the drama of this NFL
incredible.
offseason.
It's incredible.
Every week there's something crazy happening. Russell Wilson wants out. Now he's in Denver.
It really is.
Like, Tom Brady retires and now he's back, and Kyler Murray wants out of. And it's like it wasn't like this before.
It never was like this. It
You
was
had
the
a-
least transient league.
Right. You had a superstar quarterback. He was there for his career.
Yep.
Now all of a sudden they're moving around, and guys in the player empowerment stuff has really bled over into the NFL, and these guys are saying like, I want out of here, and getting moved to Deshaun Watson. Like, it is unreal the way that the NFL has been able to create more drama, and I truly believe this was like an operative. They're like, we need more drama.
Wow.
And they're getting it, and it's making it more fun, at least from an off-season perspective. And obviously the NFL is just when on the field, the product's amazing.
I don't know if the drama part, we'll see how it plays out. I will say this, 10 years ago, we thought that when the decision happened with LeBron, I know this conversation happened as well. I was like, look, man, I know a lot of people are unhappy, but it's better for them to feel some way than to not feel at all. And you fast forward 12 years, and I think the NBA has lost a lot of people with this, like, player movement and just it's gone so far in one direction that I think some people are like, what team is going on? Arenas are now different. So I'll put a pin in that because you're right that there's a lot of drama, but there's a blowback when there's too much drama. And I think the NFL's done a very good job of making the sport and the game the centerpiece in a way that the NBA has not done a very good job of.
For sure.
So we'll see how they balance it.
I just think the NFL is just adding new things. Like they already have the most...
More games.
They're adding more games, but they already have the most compelling on-field product.
Yeah.
They have the best draft.
Yeah.
They have the best off-season in terms of somehow there's always some NFL thing going on
right
that
around
you
the
can
corner.
talk about. Yep.
Right
Yeah.
around the corner.
And now they're adding this player movement drama thing too that just it creates more buzz, and I think it's fun.
I know this isn't the perfect answer to your question, and I was hoping you wouldn't say the NFL. I don't know how the NFL can get more fun. I'm not kidding. I am a basketball guy. I told you earlier, nothing has made endorphins in me fire the way. I would literally rather watch an NFL game than an NBA game.
Really?
I would.
Wow.
And I would never think even 10 years ago me saying that.
Can I say playoff for playoff? Let's say it's a playoff first round game, football, NFL or NBA. Because the regular season to me in the NBA
One and
is
done.
Football. I mean, the drama of someone is going home.
Yeah.
It's like NBA, you got to beat that guy 4 times in 12 days.
Right.
And I actually like that structure better because I think it lends itself for the better team winning. But the NFL, I am addicted to the NFL, and I was not like this. I did not grow up like this. But as I've grown to be a man, and I'm watching their product, just my natural instinct level of interest, it could not be higher.
Yeah. What I love about the NFL is that the city and team are still one. And I just think that that's such a sacred thing, that this is a Broncos town because the Broncos play here.
Right.
And it's not like I'm a Mahomes guy, so I'm not a Chiefs fan. I just love Mahomes, so I'm a Chiefs guy now. I know Aaron Rodgers, he comes down. I love Rodgers. I'm going to put my Rodgers. I just love that it's no, it's Broncos. We're Broncos. We do a Broncos tailgate. We go to Broncos. All that stuff. And the NFL's done such a good job of making it the team first. I think the sport lends itself to this in large part too. But it's remained focused on that in a way that I think is very important.
I also know you hate the whole opposing teams fans take over a stadium.
But the NBA did this to themselves. They marketed the player, not the team.
Correct.
And they started that with Michael Jordan. And at the time it worked because Michael Jordan was, back then it was like you just played on the team you were drafted by. And you had Kobe and you had these guys. And the guys that were changing teams were like Charles Barkley and Shaq. They were peripheral superstars. But what's happened in the last 15 years is that now it's the main guys.
Totally.
These people you see aren't Warriors fans.
No.
They're not going to be Warriors
Steph
fan in
fans.
10 years. They're
Yep,
Steph Curry fans.
that's right.
And now you go to a Nuggets-Warriors game, it's going to look like, oh my God, I had no idea there was this many people. There's not. And that's the thing that I think the NBA, those chickens have come home to roost a little bit. And that now that players are trading so much, that it just feels like a cacophony that you're almost like, I don't even know what I'm watching.
Right.
Or what
James
I'm
Harden is
for.
the perfect example of that. It's
there's no James Harden stands in the world. You know what I mean?
Well,
there was, but it just you got lost control of it because you can't keep following him.
Man, and LeBron, you mentioned him earlier. Colin Cowherd had a great quote years ago. He said, "Magic and Bird saved the NBA. Michael
He turned it into
made
$1 billion,
made it global, and LeBron made it mobile." And we've seen that almost to a degree that probably has passed a point. And
it's too far,
especially to the older demographic.
Yeah.
I think that young kids who are 12, 13, 14, this is kind of just what they know, and they root for their guy and they're going to get that jersey. NFL, man, we just talked about Von Miller being on the Mount Rushmore. If he came in here with the Rams, people aren't going to be happy if Von Miller gets a sack. They're going to be booing.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to be booing
You're
the
right.
other team. And it's such a laundry-driven sport. You root for the colors on the jersey.
And what I was going to say is that just never, not at least in Denver, you'll never see another team come in and take over the stadium.
Yeah.
I think it's happened once before when they were bad and they played the Steelers. I still hear horror stories of terrible towels waving around in Mile High. But it just, even when during this stretch of bad Broncos football, you never, at least I didn't, I never went in the stadium and been like, whoa.
Right.
There was a good amount of Eagles fans or whatever. There's always going to be.
Steelers are the one that I think has a big presence, in part because of the towel.
It's the towels,
you just notice it
visually.
visually. But What MLS? Yeah, we're doing Big Four. You know when we talk MLS out here? I have no freaking idea what I'm talking about. You want me to go here?
The MLS will expand in the next few years because of World Cup coming to the U.S.
Yeah, I mean that could be a big one. Like they have to.
In '96, it pushed them to create the league. This time, it's going to push the league into becoming a Big Five.
I like that.
Leagues and fans,
I
I
hope
think,
that
have a
happens.
responsibility, almost a shared responsibility in how well a league markets itself. And this is why it brings it to
Yeah.
baseball to me. Because I feel like baseball, I've shared this take before, I think baseball has been solved largely in that it's so easy to have a dumb football take. I can hop on a football and just talk dumb stuff. And, like, I can at least, even if I have a wrong take, I can just, like, position it about,
People
like,
who make whole careers
the
off
whole careers out of just
There
hot
is.
take football takes, and you're like, I don't know, Broncos just don't have a spine, and you're like, what are we talking about here? I don't know. With baseball, you can't really do that. Like we've figured it out. It's such a pitch by pitch sport. There's a math to it, and you can do this. And I wonder if it made it less accessible. That now,
sure.
like, it's hard just to be like,
Dude.
oh, I like Bryant because he just has a slugger. And you're like, well, he's not really slugging this year because he blah blah blah. And he doesn't pitch well. Runners in scoring position. Like, yeah, but he just you can't do it.
I identify with that so much. I really love the Rockies. Like I
Yeah.
always have. I've loved the Rockies my whole life. I really like watching baseball. Like it makes me so happy when they start 4-1 because I'm like, oh, they're gonna be at least be relevant for like a little while here. And I could not tell you what 3/4 of the stats that people use now.
Yeah.
And like this is not an anti-analytics take.
Right.
It's just an anti. You're making it harder for me to know what I want or what I'm looking for.
Tebow was objectively not what the people that loved him thought he was. Like, it just objectively was not. But he kept winning, and there's a few enough games that you could be like, no, man, he's just a winner. It's like, all right, you get a seat at the table for this conversation.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that in baseball. I just feel like it's too hard to have the wrong take and try to argue it in this, like, existential way. And that makes it less accessible because you have to, like, study to be in the club.
And to your point, yes, you're right about that. And that's why you don't hear baseball discussions happening on a national level.
Right,
You
right.
just don't hear it. It's not as engaging
Right.
as those open-ended conversations that we can have with basketball and football. And I don't think hockey is for the same reason, but you don't hear hockey being discussed.
It's siloed as well a little bit.
It is. It's very specific niche, like,
Yeah.
and that's the way it's been for years now. Where if you want a death sentence on a
Right.
coast-to-coast show, start talking expansively about baseball or hockey. I love baseball and hockey,
Yeah.
but that's just the way it is right now.
Yeah, I mean, hockey's the one that makes me the most sad because I adore hockey as a sport.
Yeah.
Like just watching it, being at the game, it's all like 10 out of 10 for me. And I don't understand how they're so bad at growing it because, like, I don't know. A lot of people come here and work for DNVR that didn't love hockey,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of like hockey love that happens in this building that kind of ropes people in, and then they start hanging out here and watching the games and like, yeah, here's, raising his hand right now. You become an Avs fan,
Yeah.
you become a hockey fan. All you have to do is just kind of be exposed to it.
Right, yep, that's
And
it.
somehow they're like really bad at exposing new people to it.
Yeah.
Well, and then here in Denver, I mean, think about the sentence that you just said. They have to be exposed to it, and the games literally
Yeah,
aren't on
yeah.
television.
Exactly.
That's
exactly.
so painful.
The last thing about baseball is just that it's also a bit of a hopeless feeling sport. I know some of these small market, small spending teams have won in the past, but it's just the disparity in what you could spend is just so ridiculous to me that I have a hard time. I mean, we see this in the NBA, obviously, even though there's a salary cap and this or that, it still is not fully fair. But when you talk about a team spending 6-7 times as much as other
Yeah.
teams in the division, you're like, what are we doing?
And also, the games don't have consequence. You lose a game, that's less than 1% of
Yeah.
your schedule. And I know I'm not breaking news with
you-
that, but I think that matters.
You see Bud Black the other day said he's in favor of the pitch clock.
No.
Why not?
This is such an anti-baseball thing because I just feel like the baseball purists are like, no, man, like wasting time is part of the battle. And so that. And I
yeah,
kind of liked him being like breaking the mold and just being like, hey, man, if it makes the game more fun, let's do it.
It's kind of hard to follow, but like I thought we got rid of the shift and the runner at second in extra innings. I guess that's coming later because like I was the game went to extra innings the other night, and then I was like, I thought we weren't doing this anymore,
Yeah.
and then like they're still.
It's gone, not the
No, the shift is not gone. I'm watching them shift on every play. That's what I mean. I thought it
Yeah.
was.
We got a super chat here I want to read. What do we got here from Joe? He says, one thing to consider is that Jokic will be more known around the world. Basketball is a global sport. When Jokic wins ships, the world will know. I think there's definitely some truth to that. Like, we have our American goggles on, right? At football, like, where it reaches outside the U.S. a lot less than some of these other things. Baseball, especially. Basketball does. Still on a smaller scale, though. Like, even factoring that in, it's still smaller than what the NFL brings, just the punch the NFL brings, especially in the U.S.
I think basketball, from a global standpoint, basketball is freaking coming, man. Like what they're doing with NBA Africa, it's exploding in these different parts around the world. You're seeing, and I said this 3 years ago. Now I believe this, by the year 2030, you're going to have every other player in that league be from overseas. It used to be kind of ours, and you'd see that at the Olympics where we'd go flex, and we're going to see the reverberations of.
Look at the MVP this year.
Look at the Finals MVP. His name is Giannis Antetokounmpo, and now Nikola Jokic.
Look at potentially the top 4 in vote getters this year.
Luka's going to come in
Jokic,
5th, I think. But
Jokic, Giannis, Embiid, and Luka, and then Devin Booker is another. But like that's the 4 of the best 5 players in basketball.
And the pipeline continues. There's a guy, Victor W. Wembanyama or something like that from France, who's like a 7'3" 3-point shooter, shot blocker, who's by some accounts the best prospect since LeBron James, who is coming into the draft here in 2 years. So it only gets bigger and bigger. Before we get out of here, I got a couple. This is the last thing we'll do before we get out.
Your last
you want to read
thing,
these ones before we get to the final segment?
I'll get
my first time hosted this one.
You're doing pretty good, man.
So, a little clunky on the ad reads here.
He doesn't put the ad in Adam, I'll say. I'll just say, I got to say this. We were talking about how it's so difficult to watch the Avs and Nuggets. There's a solution out there, Avaca TV.
Oh, man.
It's a streaming service.
Love these guys.
You hook up to your TV. It's very cheap, starting at
$25 a month plus a receiver.
Let's go, $25 a month.
I'm currently endorsing Avaca.
Plus, we're all Avaca people.
Go.
Look at this.
Plus, you can get $10 off your first 3 months when you go to Avaca TV/DNVR. So check it out. It's the way to watch the Avs and Nuggets. I've had a couple people DM me being like, I got my dad set up on this. He hadn't watched, the Avs in years or the Nuggets in years. It's really cool. It's an awesome product, and it's only growing. So check out Avaca TV/DNVR. And lastly, I don't know if you guys have noticed this glow that I have. It's not just.
Oh my God! What is it? Can you tell me?
Athletic Greens.
Is that what it is? Wow!
I got the AG glow.
You're looking
going.
a lot more athletic
Greens
for sure.
Glow. Go to athleticgreens.com/TDSP to get hooked up with your Athletic Greens. I'm telling you, I actually like the taste. A lot of other people do. My trick: mix it in your cup. 1 ice cube. Just one ice cube. Chill it down a little bit. You get all of your greens, your fruits, your vegetables, all that stuff all in with your Athletic Greens. It's great for your gut health. It's great for your skin. And you too can have the AG glow.
All right, I got a couple quick videos for you guys. I just want to know, do you approve or do you not approve? This is very simple. We're just trying to we're going to be the judges of sports here. First one up, Albert Pujols. Albert Pujols is going to steal second, you guys.
My goodness, I saw
Let's
that.
take
Stealing
a look.
third.
There, stealing third. Here he goes. Oh my God, he was so. Look at these steps, man.
Dude, look at
Is that the slowest looking run you've ever seen in your life? Do you approve, Pujols? Just going for broke, man. We're just going to try to sneak to third here.
I'm going to say that's a no. That's going to be a no for me.
I do not approve. He looks like a beer league softballer that won a contest. Look under your seat. Oh, you're going to play you're going to play in the bigs tonight.
Or he kind of looks like he's the bigger dude at the party, sags his jeans and someone stole his hat and he's running after.
I do approve. You guys are both. You got this one wrong. You're off to a bad start. You do approve. Again, what did we just say about the math in baseball? Did the math say he should try to steal third?
It did not. It did not.
But that was awesome. We're not talking about a regular stolen
He did it
base.
for the
We're talking
vibes.
about a field. The vibes were incredible. He gets bonus points. All right, what do we got next? Oh, Coach K. I don't know if you guys saw this. Lost to Carolina, but they had a little ceremony here. We're going to honor him, and his team got him a gift. You can turn the volume off. We don't need to have it. You could just fast forward to where they present him with what?
Coming. He's going to look over his shoulder. There it is.
A puppy. First of all, do you guys approve of a puppy as a gift?
Hard no.
Yeah.
Disapprove. You cannot give someone living that needs your attention multiple times a day. There better be a full-time Duke staffer, a legacy staffer at the Krzyzewski household to pick up crap.
That's a weird one. I approve of a puppy as a gift for your 5-year-old child.
Yes. Yes.
Sure.
It's barking. You
Right.
got comes out from behind the tree. That sounds great. giving like an old man a puppy. Like,
I'm so glad you went here because I was going to go here.
Like, what is
There's
he
a certain age cutoff where you should no longer buy an
Right.
animal that plans to live to be 15 years old. That cutoff is probably like 60. It's lower than it needs to be, but it's
Yes.
about 60. You just don't buy anybody north of 60 a puppy.
I remember the Rockies, as a retirement gift for Todd Helton, bought him a horse.
Wow.
That's right. That's right.
And
That's my favorite thing.
it had a crazy name. Unfortunately, it didn't live too long, but but I thought that was really weird too.
All right, last one. I know everybody saw this. I know everybody's talked about this, but we got to do it together here on this panel. The Timberwolves' big emotional win over the Clippers. Pat Beverly, who was not given an extension when he was with the Clippers despite doing so much. This is how he celebrated making the 7th seed. He hops up on the onto the scorer's table. You got Anthony Edwards up on the scorer's table. You got a shirt coming. He's back on. That's 2 trips onto the scorer's table. He takes the jersey off. He throws it into the crowd. He's going crazy. Guys, this was for a 7 seed. Do we approve or disapprove of this level of jubilation?
I actually approve. I think that life is short, and
Believe you stole my take on this.
if it means that much to you,
Yeah.
and that man is getting excited about the Minnesota Timberwolves,
Yeah.
he lit that crowd on fire. But
1000%.
But I disapprove of Anthony Edwards jumping.
No,
up.
you're wrong.
You can't be the second
No,
person to jump
yes,
up
you
on the
can.
scorer's table.
You know,
when D-Wade jumps up there, you let him do his thing.
You know what? Here's why I disagree. Pat Bev was like the heart, and Anthony Edwards. Those 2 guys were the heart. They had earned the right to go. If Karl Anthony Towns hopped up on there, then I would have been like, "Yo, you need to just cheer from the floor here on this one." But no, Anthony Edwards and Pat Bev, they earned that one. Let them get up there.
I got caught up. I dunked on Pat Bev on Twitter.
Yeah. Oh, there's nothing wrong with
And
that.
then I went to sleep that night, and I realized that I was wrong.
Yeah.
I
Dunker's
always
remorse.
complain about myself not celebrating small victories enough, and this was a very small victory.
Yeah.
But it was
very small one. Yeah.
it was one that meant a lot to him, and I was like, man, I wish I could get that stoked when I
Yeah.
just like clear a little, like a nice road bump on the way to a greater goal. I wish I could like pop champagne and jump up and down. But I'm anti on the scoreboard at any time other than after a championship.
No way,
Oh,
man.
no,
Get out of
no,
here with these
no,
unwritten
no.
rules. Get
Yeah.
out of here. I'm with Zach, man. We had the Kobe. Remember when he made the finals? They won the conference finals, and he was all serious. They're like, "Why
Yeah.
aren't you excited?" He's
Yeah.
like, "We haven't done nothing yet." If your goal is a championship, like the Suns can have that mentality.
Sure.
Timberwolves, man, they're not out here to win a
You
title.
just can't jump on the scoreboard.
Yes, you can. You can celebrate. You can jump up and down. You can
Scores
jump at each
table,
other's
sorry.
arms.
I never
Scores table.
understood some of the greatest coaches of all time, Nick Saban and Bill Belichick in particular, crossing the finish line of the ultimate goal and
Yeah.
being unwilling to
Oh, of course.
blissfully
Yeah, it's so
smile.
annoying.
It's just like, bro, like what
What's the point?
are you doing even living?
You're a
Like this
compulsive
is
winner
the
now,
point.
yeah.
Like this is the point. So I just believe life is so short, man, and being an athlete, your time span is just live, get your flowers,
Yeah.
smell them, do a victory lap.
There's an old Bill Walsh quote about when he retired, and he said, at a certain point, the wins became worth 0 and the losses
Yeah,
were
that's
negative
yeah,
1.
you got to reanalyze
You can't be
yourself.
like that.
Yeah, you got to
you can't be
reanalyze,
like
man.
that.
Zach, you were a fantastic guest, man.
Thank you for having me, man. Obviously I've told you, to your face, how big of a fan, and I really respect your humility when talking about the game of basketball. You have a certain level of humility. You combine the former player stuff. You're not a know-it-all. And Ryan, I love you, man, and I just root for you guys, and I appreciate you guys having me here.
Hell yeah, man. This was great.
Wait, Todd Helton's horse will name a true bust a move.
True bust a move?
A true bust a move.
A true bust a
see-
move. I love that.
I hate it.
Thanks, everybody.
R.I.P. though, R.I.P.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Don't forget to catch Zach, one half of Stokely and Zach and Stokely, and then also the 4th year, the Mile High Hoops podcast.
Yes.
Nailed those ones. Everybody, we'll see you next time.